All right, the City Council is back from recess, and we're back into the 2017-18 biennial budget continued public hearing with the staff presentations. And we start off with the Community and Economic Development Department. Go ahead.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Tonight, we want to cover some of the highlights of the community development budget. Starting with long-range planning, we have projected that long-range planning will include the continuation of the downtown implementation. Also, we've brought into the budget area the Canyon Park project for the Canyon Park visioning portion of a multi-phase sub-area plan that interim city manager mentioned in his opening remarks. Included with that is the usual plan and code updates that are an annual ongoing event for that division, as well as any applications that we receive from citizens on plan amendments that may be docketed for 2017 and 2018. We're hoping that we can augment that division's resources with some economic development assistance through hiring an economic development manager to work in concert with the long-range planning team, who will help with outreach and also help with the economic analysis for those project areas and plans, and keep that section going as robust as we have in the past. The next item I wanted to cover is the development services team. As you know, we've been going through some changes with development services group, and those changes have brought forward additional resources into that section by combining several functions within the city, not only building and plan review coming out of the current planning section, but also some engineering, permit technician, and then collaboration with community risk reduction. Some of the milestones that we're looking forward to there are going to include a biennial quarterly meetings with the Development Services Stakeholders Advisory Group, maintain levels of service to reduce and maintain the backlog. We should have that backlog down by the end of this year and continue it on a maintenance level throughout 2017 and 18. We're going to monitor that backlog by having weekly reports of development services progress. We're going to continue throughout 2017 to refine and work on our existing procedures and creation of implementation new measures to promote development services principles, and also expand and enhance our electronic plan review. In that area, the combination of building services, current planning, engineering, at least going through all of the records that we've been tallying up, there's about 1,000 building permits that occurred during 1 year time frame. I'm sorry, 1,000 building permits through the biennial time frame, and about 8,500 inspections through that same biennial time frame as well. The functions are also enhanced by administrative services, and we're looking at transferring one position that will report directly to the development services team to help support that function. In addition, the development services team will also have a code compliance officer that will keep abreast of our ongoing community code complaints that run about 250 per biennium. So with those changes and focusing forward on the Canyon Park master plan, we're also hoping to see the economic development manager work on the biomedical innovation partnership zone area to strengthen those partnerships there and reaching out to the companies that are in the biomedical field. Following these changes through the budget reflects about a 1.5% reduction, and we've achieved that through the expiration of a half-time permit tech and reduction of consulting services in the building division, and that totals roughly about $290,000. So as we're shifting some of our priorities to accomplish a broader development services team, we think there's some cost savings in building division resources that can be deployed to make it possible to work on the economic development manager function as well as helping out with this restructuring of the development services team in general. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Is there any questions from council? Councilmember Agnew.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions. So I was looking at the information we have, and it's on page 125 of our packet. It talks specifically about averages, and it says in here, percentage of first reviews completed within 3 weeks, and then percentage of resubmittals reviews completed within 2 weeks, and we were at a 61% average. And that was for first-time tenant improvement permits, and for new single-family permits, we were at 64%. I see that your target is 80% minimum for the next year, and yet you've lost personnel.
Well, we've lost, the half-time permit tech would be expiring. I think that the bringing the team together under one manager will help. Also, the reporting that is occurring is not focused on as much on what's being accomplished, and a new focus that we're bringing together is to force closure when we have some problem solving. So we're hoping to increase that percentage through that program, if we can.
Okay, I'd be curious to see how it works out.
Well, and also I shouldn't forget to mention that the lean process and coming forward with efficiencies through bringing the team together and giving them a little more empowerment to bring forward their own streamlining and efficiencies is really starting to take hold. It's kind of a different management philosophy that we're working on now, and it's just starting to take off. So as we go through the next 2 months of reporting, I think we'll know whether it's going to work. Yeah.
So I believe there's no other questions from council, but I'd had just a couple questions. So we brought in some help to try to get the backlog of permits down. How's that going?
Thank you very much. We have sent some permits out to Safe Built, and we've had them come back. So far, so good. We've started with some fairly easy ones. We're going to step that up a little more, there's still some working relationships there that we need to refine somewhat, but so far so good.
Okay. And I do support the economic development manager addition. You only have this, you have the same amount of full-time employees, even though we're adding that position, correct? Because we consolidated 2 positions into the community development manager
Yes,
position.
that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah.
And I just want to say, I think I mean, you've only been, how long you been the community development director?
It's been about 16 months.
16 months. And we've probably done you've had the most change, I would say, out of all the departments in the city. And I appreciate what you've stayed at the helm through. And I look forward to seeing all the changes really come to fruition in the next year.
Oh, well, thanks. We have great team support from finance, HR, and IT. Speaking of IT, one of the things that I do want to mention is part of our request in the IT budget is to provide for laptops or tablets for field inspectors. We think that would also be a good time saver, and it would also allow kind of just in time uploading into our database system that would save the inspectors time at the end of the day from logging all of that information back into the system. Currently, they are using metal boxes with forms out in the field, which is pretty archaic for today's times, and it's time we start making that transition.
And you said that's in the IT budget request now?
Yes.
That's a yes. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty important because we have electronic permits now too, right?
Yes, and
schedule.
yes, and we're hoping with either this week or next week, scheduling of online inspections will go live. We're working on kind of putting out a notice when that's going to take shape. We're doing a lot of testing on it right now.
Okay, great. Thanks. Councilmember Freed.
I appreciate you bringing that up. If an inspector's in the field with a tablet, they would have access to the approved set of plans?
Possibly, yes. Yeah, that would be one of the side benefits.
That would be helpful, because I know there's times that inspectors may show up and the plans are not on site, and so they have to leave.
Right.
So obviously, that's not a positive thing for the person that they're inspecting, because they forgot to leave the plans. But it's also not great for the inspector, who otherwise plan their time differently. So if they could show up and still complete their work, regardless of whose fault it was the plans weren't there, or if they were there or not, that would be a great beneficial thing to all parties.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. And Joe's nodding his head that they would be.
Good.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question. It might be in here and I just didn't catch it. What are the plans, or are there plans for over-the-counter permitting and expedited permitting?
Well, we're doing some of that to an extent now. We're planning to use a portion of the Safe Built contract that was included in their work to come in and review where that threshold is set. I'd like to see if we can't raise that bar a little bit. It takes a little bit of internal reorganization, but I would like to see us do more. And dovetailing off of Dean Perez's commentary about the customer service, we'd like to look at some of the physical features and make it a little more comfortable to do some of that over-the-counter type work. So a little bit of organizational change and physical change. We hope we can make that happen.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next, we have the Parks and Recreation, Tourism, and Events.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. John Keats here again. It'd be a pleasure to give you this short presentation. So this is Parks and Recreation Department, and we officially began on May 9th, 2015. As you recall, the Parks and Rec was previously a division of the Public Works Department. We have 11.5 FTEs, includes an administrative assistant, recreation coordinator, recreation assistant, park operations supervisor, Scott Purdy sitting here right here, and 7 full-time park maintenance staff. We also have up to 5 seasonal park maintenance staff during the summer time. We also work, worth mentioning, work a lot with a lot of volunteer groups, including Friends of North Creek Forest, hopefully more with One Bothell, youth sports organizations, and Adopt a Park volunteers. So what I'd like to do is just really quick go through our main areas of operation and give you a little photograph of the future and open up to questions. So for park operations, again, Scott's our park operations supervisor. We have 7 full-time FTEs and the seasonal maintenance workers. We have roughly 24 parks that we currently maintain, including 9 athletic fields, thereabouts 272 acres of parkland. And I'll give some level of service information tonight. The level of service info does not include some of these other items that the staff take care of, which is the downtown corridor landscaping, police, municipal court landscape maintenance, a couple cemeteries, 3 fire stations, some mitigation sites. We also have responsibilities for trail work, roughly about 4 miles of trails. The Bothell Operations Center. We have a couple arborists on staff that take care of our city arborist duties, and then volunteer coordination for a variety of groups performing one-time or ongoing volunteer efforts. Our administrative assistant is Nurjamal Smith. She provides staff support to myself, recreation coordinator, the recreation assistant, park operations supervisor, and she's our lead person for customer service. When Nurjamal is gone, the backup is either Rick, our recreation coordinator, recreation assistant, or myself. The recreation program is ran primarily by Rick Jones, recreation coordinator, and we also have Lisa Eckert, who's a recreation assistant at a 0.5 FTE. Just a few recreation highlights from 2016. They did approximately 240 programs with about 3,900 participants. Revenues were about $150,000 from those programs. Gym night met 30 times, had about 600 participants. Skyhawks camps in the summer had 39 camp offerings for 531 participants. Adult softball, we offered 11 leagues with about 100 teams and 1,500 participants. We also have a effort to produce the bridge. We were responsible for 12 pages in the bridge 4 times annually. And sponsorships, we secure sponsorships for a lot of our special events, and this year we brought in about a little over $25,000. And speaking of special events and community events, again, Rick and Lisa are primarily responsible for these programs. And quite frankly, like the parade is really a all-hands citywide event, but the 4th of July parade brought in about 12,000 spectators thereabouts. We had music in the park, 8 concerts on Fridays between 4th of July and Labor Day. Safe Halloween coming up October 31st. 2 community concerts, new programs this year at the park at Bothell Landing. We had about 200 participants there. Community camp out at Blythe Park and an Arbor Day event. We also have indoor facilities and outdoor athletic fields that we're responsible for administering, and we have 4 picnic shelters that saw 258 rentals in 2016. Lytle House had about 56 private rentals. North Creek Schoolhouse, which we're hoping to get more use out of, we got to market more. We had 9 private rentals. Then we have our sports fields with Cedar Grove, Doug Allen, North Creek Sports Fields, a little over 17, almost 1,800 reservations. Our staff also responsible for working with the public to reserve City Hall and the McMinnon's Community Room. Some bookings at the fields require lighting, so it takes work to make sure that occurs, about 616 bookings. And then total revenue generated from rentals this year was about $227,000. So challenges we've faced since Parks and Recreation Department started. Administrative staff support has been a little bit of a challenge with 1 dedicated FTE for admin. Parks maintenance, and again with park maintenance and all the other duties they have, the level of service with the available staff and the workload they have has been a bit of a challenge. Access and ownership to some park maintenance equipment, as Scott, and the one example he gave was a walk-behind aerator, so there's some equipment that they'd like to get in the future. We're also busy looking at planning and implementation for future growth, what new park properties could potentially be coming in the coming 2 to 3 years. Also worth mentioning, our recreation software has limited capacity and is outdated. Indoor recreation space will soon reach capacity at many of our current venues. And since moving to City Hall, in-person customer service has been a challenge. And it was really refreshing to hear Dean's comments tonight. I think that the program they're working on could really, really help. So looking at the next couple of years' budgets, we're looking for requesting 1 FTE for parks maintenance in 2017 and 2 FTEs for 2018, primarily in regard to potentially bringing on new park sites. Also proposed recreation assistant going from half to full-time. That would allow us to get more secure sponsorships, maybe a couple 2 to 3 children's concerts, more events, plus backup for administration is needed, and can also work to develop more community programs, events, and market our facility rentals. There also is a proposal for a community events and tourism coordinator. And again, CLASS, our registration software, that replacement is in the budget. The registration software will become unsupported in November of 2017. Then we'll be looking at future of the Wayne Golf Course. Probably have Lieutenant Nicholas Madrazo Park coming online sometime next year. And North Creek Forest acquisitions are currently undergoing and looking at some master planning hopefully in the coming years. Also making good progress on a Parks and Recreation Foundation and looking to do more out in the community with community partnerships. And this graph I just wanted to show, just give you an idea of our number of employees and acres maintained per employee. And this is totally on the assumption that we would never get any more park FTEs or park maintenance employees. So it's based on potential growth and keeping the staff static as we are now. So we're right about 272 acres or 30 acres per employee now. And in 2017, we could see the rest of the North Creek Forest and Madrazo Park come online. That would add some more acreage, add up our level of service to about 33 acres per employee. The big acquisition, of course, could be the Wayne Golf Course, which could bump up the level of service to about 43 acres per employee, and then down into 2020, 2021, depending on some North Bothell Park or Shelton View Woods property, just an estimate about 50 acres, and that could bring it up to about 48 acres per employee. And then lastly, just a quick snapshot of the capital facilities plan for our parks projects. We are looking for grant monies for a number of the projects, most notably the Wayne Golf Course, of course, Park at Bothell Landing Ped and Bike Bridge, and the Cedar Grove Athletic Field improvements are high on the list. And of course, we also have others in there, but the bottom line is we have a pretty good funding shortfall looking over everything, and with potentially of more than 12, almost 13 million on pending or possible funding coming in. So that's my staff report, and happy to try to answer any questions for you.
Great, thank you. Is there any questions? Sold.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next is Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. All right, thank you for, I see I'm kind of batting cleanup almost. You're on the home stretch. So just wanted to, let's see, this isn't looking like it's supposed to at all. Let's try it this way. So the mayor asked in a few meetings ago about where's the rest of the Public Works budget. The Public Works budget is spread across several funds throughout your budget book, 3 areas within the general fund, and then there are 5 other funds. You'll notice when you look through this list of funds that there's quite a bit of variability in the utility funds, so sewer, storm, and water. The reason for that is that the capital programs are included in those funds. So the $6 million difference between the last biennium and the proposal for this coming biennium are primarily related to capital projects that we have a reduced capital program in storm, the Horse Creek project we're just finishing up, so that pulls off of that fund. And then the water fund will be reduced because we will be finishing up Penn Park Reservoir probably early next year. So those are the two drivers there. The facilities, the difference in the facilities budget is due to primarily the City Hall maintenance and operations. Council approved some positions both last year as well as this year to assume the full maintenance of this structure. And it's also the operations and maintenance funding that goes along with that. It also nets out the previous facilities that we had that this building replaced. So that's why it might not be as high as one might expect. The non-departmental, that's a bit of it's an interesting situation. We decided as we were going through the review of our street fund that solid waste and recycling program, which was housed there, didn't really belong there. When we were looking at how we needed to have a sustainable funding for streets, it threw it off to have the solid waste and recycling program in there as well. So starting in the 17-18 biennium, that has been moved to the non-departmental portion of the general fund. The street fund numbers up there assumes passage of the Safe Streets and Sidewalks levy. So this is the operational portion of the levy that has 2 additional staff proposed, primarily to deal with additional capital facilities that we've brought on over the past few years, as well as to bring back those programs that we eliminated previously. The sewer fund, not a whole lot of change there. That's primarily due to sewage treatment. Sewer and water, we have a large part of that fund that goes to other agencies for either sewer treatment for the sewer fund, obviously, and for water supply for water fund. I already mentioned the storm and surface water fund, as well as the water fund, the reductions there. And the equipment rental fund, there's not much of a difference. So just a reminder, we've talked a lot about the Safe Streets and Sidewalks levy, but I wanted to briefly touch on about half of it is going into the operational area, the street fund, and then the other half would go to fund capital programs, so pavement preservation, sidewalk, walkway, crosswalks. There's been some confusion about the street operations and about the $1.2 million of revenue that we're asking to restore as part of this. That's part of the fully funding street operations. So included in that is restoration of the lost revenues, the additional staff and M&O associated with capital projects, as well as annexation areas. And then there's the other specific areas that we are proposing to restore in operations: asphalt patching, sidewalk repair and replacement, as well as a more robust pavement marking program. So just a quick revisit to the Safe Streets and Sidewalks levy. One of the projects that the interim city manager asked Public Works to look at was our staff to workload for capital projects. Over the years, we have had quite a program in the 15 and 16 biennium, which you can see the spike there. We've also, and Bob has also talked about the reduction in consultant costs. In the 15 and 16 biennium, we spent about $6 million on consultants, and a lot of that was for design of things like the Multi-Way Boulevard and Main Street Enhancement and Horse Creek. 17-18, we're looking at more of a $4 million price tag for those consultants. We use consultants for nearly all of our design, and then we also use them to help us with peaks and valleys when it comes to staffing construction projects, for example. So you'll see the yellow, the kind of the mustard colored line at the bottom, that's our engineering staff, and it stays fairly static. We try to keep that at at a base level. But we look at it every year, every 2 years, particularly when we adopt a new capital facilities plan, because we want to ensure that we have adequate staff to cover it, but we don't want to overstaff and have to lay off when projects are reduced. This model does not assume passage of either the Safe Streets and Sidewalks measure or the Sound Transit 3 measure. Both of those, if they pass, will have an impact on our capital division, and we'll have to look at this a little bit closer. We always do have the option to use consultants for those tasks that we would typically use staff for. It does assume that we will be proceeding with the Main Street Enhancement Project in early next year. It also assumes continuation of the downtown cleanup, for example, as well as completion of the multi-way boulevard, and then in 2018, starting the 522 Stage 3 project. And that is it for me.
Any questions of the Public Works Director? Sold.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Last but not least, oh, no, wait. No, it is. Last one. Council Executive and Information Technology.
We hit a couple of quick highlights in the manager's office, and then we're going to talk to IT. Because everybody's asking, well, gee, IT's growing a lot. They're growing from 7 staff to 14. They must be fat. So we'll get to that in a minute. But as far as the rest of the issue, in the manager's office, they were at 7, if you went back to 07, and we're currently at 6. We're actually proposing that the senior management analyst position could go away when that position retires in 18. So that would take the manager's office down from 7 to 5. I don't know what that is a percent, but it's, as a percentage, probably one of the biggest cuts of any of the departments if we're going to play that game. In the clerk's office, though, is an important change. And we moved one of the receptionist or office specialist positions that's been working in the clerk's office but downstairs in the front desk. They're actually transferred to HR now as a part of the customer service center. And the position that is added, but in net doesn't change the net cost because of the transfer of the one to customer service, is the record specialist position. And I know if you have questions on that, Laura's prepared to answer it, but I think you may be tired of hearing about that already. So we'll leave that if you have questions. I think those were the main changes. The council didn't change the manager's office, the clerk's office. I think the big issue there is IT. So unless you have questions about what's going on in the manager's office and what we're doing, at that point, I think I'd move to IT. Because that's the big issue. You know, we put basically 1.3 million down out there as one number and 2 FTE, and everybody said, "What? We need all of that." And then we're going to get into a discussion. You've heard bits and pieces of it.
So is there any council questions for City Manager's office? Seeing none?
Joe.
Joe?
Well, I'm glad everybody's been waiting for me this evening, so I'll just take a couple of minutes to go over some of the technology. I won't use any acronyms, and I'll try not to. I applaud the chief for pointing out versions of Microsoft, but I'll avoid that in my conversation. So, underinvestment in information and communications technology over the last couple of budgets has led us to a degradation across the information systems and communications capability. As stated by Interim City Manager Bob Jean in the AOR and even Mayor Reum at a recent council meeting, the bill has come due. It is time to pay the bill. We cannot at this time provide services to our citizens that staff and council members and citizens are getting in other places in their personal and professional lives, such as online bill pay, quality mobility in the field, and transparency of our existing data. State and local governments rely heavily on the digital infrastructure, and that's not just computers, that's the entire critical information and communications technology infrastructure. to run all of our services across all departments and divisions in the city. And as you've seen tonight, technology's come up by almost every department. And some of the presentations from one of our consultants and work we'll be doing with fire in the future, data mining. That data's got to come from somewhere, and that's our information services. Whether it's from the CAD and RMS systems, fire is going to lean heavily on our GIS data, and then the work we do in the field is going to be GIS driven. So I put air quotes around the invisible infrastructure, and I think that's some of the challenge that's presented here is this large investment in IT, and not a lot of it is seen every day. It's invisible. It's behind you. It just happens. But it's a fabric of our government service delivery that supports city and local programs, enables effective and efficient services, and supports our economy. This infrastructure is the basis for our 21st century economy and allows governments and many businesses to deliver service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Online bill pay, our web, things we're doing that when we're not even here are happening, and that's a service that's expected by our citizens. The budget needs that we're talking about is for the entire city of Bothell. IS is only a core service. We actually wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the needs of the departments. And we provide them the tools and the ability to work with our citizens. And most of all these requests are determined by those directors of those departments and their staff. So IT usually doesn't recommend something. This is a need for all of those departments. Again, that discussed by police today, court, community development, parks and rec. So you can see all these departments have these needs. The 2017-18 budget submission reflects an increase that the City Council had indicated as one of their top 5 goals, to raise the city's technology standards to match the citizens' needs and local jurisdictions and become a smart city in the future. It also has an impact in many of the other goals that are on that sheet. Safe streets and sidewalks has and will lean on GIS data. We'll need to use the planning tools and software to make those changes in the future and implement and prioritize. Main Street enhancement, Canyon Park master planning, complete downtown redevelopment, all use technology to engage, plan, permit, and complete these projects. So all of those goals will have a technology impact. Fire and EMS is requesting tablets and smartphones to make them more mobile in the field, give them more information in the field. Pre-planning, pre-fire planning would be something that you want to see on a mobile device. We also have a problem with our HR software. It is not meeting some of our needs, and our current system is in violation of Washington State Insurance Authority for collecting signed time cards. So again, that's another thing that's affecting other departments. And the heroin addiction action plan is another one. We've already implemented the probation software that you had already approved to move ahead with. So there's some examples of that. In the proposed budget of $1.5 million additional, so we're talking of adding on to our existing, maintenance operations costs are increasing by 1.5. 925,000 of the 1.5 is one-time costs. We will be focusing on upgrading the finance software. We have not had a major upgrade in that software in 12 years. The cost is approximately $450,000, and we'll need some IS support in the as a application analyst. So it's 0.75 of that 1 FTE. Human resources software, again, hasn't been upgraded in 12 years, and some of the violations we're having for collecting signed time cards. That's the other 0.25 FTE of the application analyst. Parks and Rec, and John spoke of that. That goes unsupported in 2017. We have the staff to support that, but we need to invest about $70,000 to get the new system on board. The chief spoke of the New World system. It's a cost of about $100,000. It is a life safety issue. We have, and it will go unsupported soon, and it has to be fixed. There's a little difference of unsupported and it's not being updated or enhanced. And we have problems when that happens, that we can't get the support, even though they say it's supported, because they're not investing the time to troubleshoot those unsupported, those supported but not supported operating systems. Chief also spoke of the police digital media system, which is non-existent at this time, of a cost of $150,000. We have in here the fleet and facilities upgrades. It's going to leverage the MMS system that we have already purchased in the last year, 2016. But there is some front-end costs to for the vendor to come in and teach us how to use those. The fleet software hasn't been upgraded in 15 years, and the facility software is non-existent at this time. So $165,000 of this is directly related to the approximate 20% increase in maintenance costs to support our existing enterprise portfolio for both software and hardware. So Microsoft is 15% increase per year. Tyler Industries, which provides our finance software and our permitting software, 17%, and on and on and on. So given the drive to stay in a 2% budget increase, the software companies are not cooperating with that. So I try to help that, but they don't listen. So, and then 200,000 of the last 200,000 of the FTE, or the 1.5, is an additional 5% FTE for some of the improvements in the citywide printing program, upgrades in small software titles, and investing in mobility of city staff, tablets, smartphones, and facility wireless past City Hall. Our budgeted personal costs are increasing by $952,000, and that is the elephant in the room. 2 of our GIS positions were removed from utility funds and into the IS in 2016. So Bob Jean was talking about that number of 7 to 14. Was it 10? Was it 12? Those positions have been shifting. We've moved them into IS, but we're billing back to the utility so we can be more efficient in using that time. And then, of course, the 2 new positions being added, an IS tech position to meet the demands associated with the growing technology, not only our fleet, which since 2007, and fleet is our PCs, our servers, our cell phones, our tablets, or our laptops. Since 2007, which is the last time we brought a tech on, we've increased our fleet by 33%. We've had a 23% increase in staff, so city staff, so we have to support them also, and a 21% increase in service calls. And then the IS application analyst position that will serve as the administrator for the new citywide financial system that's scheduled to be implemented in 2017, and the HR specific software to be implemented right after that. So we've waited all night to ask me questions, and I'm prepared to answer those.
Great, thank you. Councilmember McNeil.
I'll keep it short and sweet, but thank you. Common theme, you are a service provider to all of us. So for all your hard work and efforts, we thank you, because without you guys, we don't perform. You had made a comment about providing wireless past City Hall. What did that mean?
So our other buildings, all our fire stations, police, so to have Wi-Fi enabled, not only for internal, for the staff to move around internally with laptops, but also to provide some guest services in the other buildings. So all 3 fire stations, the operations center, and PD.
Fabulous, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Joe. I don't need convincing. I think when we had our budget retreat, it was overwhelming that everyone on staff, all the directors, supported the need to upgrade our systems, hardware, software, all the rest. It's only unfortunate that all council members weren't there, because I think they missed kind of the whole presentation and understanding the level and the need. So I fully support, and I don't think, I think you feel like there's maybe a bullseye, but certainly not on my part. I totally understand. My husband works in the tech industry, and I understand that those costs go up, and unfortunately, we don't really have a choice. So I thank you for your hard work, and I fully support
Thank you.
you. Thanks.
Councilmember Sandberg.
Thank you for your presentation. I think it's important that we do improve our technology systems. I think you've made that point. And part of of improving our technology is making us more efficient with our time. And so I understand that there are startup personnel needs if you're going to implement all of these new systems. And so my question is, do you see one of these positions potentially filled as a term limited position, or do these have to be ongoing FTEs if the goal is to increase efficiency?
So that's a great question, and that's part of the invisible. So we see a system stood up, and we say, okay, it's running. It's providing the service. At the same time, that application analyst, and I'll use that specifically, has to do things past implementation. The program itself is the system gets upgraded. So you have bugs and fixes and patches come every 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. The application analyst then has to train the staff that's using that, the business units, and help them along in that process. They also have to onboard new staff. Good thing about adding technology, where sometimes efficiencies are created, there's new features that are added, and the application analyst is used throughout that whole process, and then they almost start again sometimes. The biggest thing I think that's the most important is with our application analysts, if you think of the 7 to 10 to 12 applications we have, they all have to exchange data. And that takes the knowledge of not only making sure that one system talks to the other, but then as a new system comes on, what is the implication to that piece of software, and even GIS at the time. So they really don't go away. I mean, we've had an application analyst for our police services for 13 years, because that's what I was hired as. And as the chief spoke, that position is just as important today as it was 13 years ago. Granted, Aaron's probably better than I was, but I'm okay with that. Our Lucidity software, which we've just turned on and will begin going live in February of 17, there's 13 phases over the next 6 years to just keep adding modules and features. It doesn't go away. It's always there. So I don't see it being a limited term position. I see it being full-time, and it's needed to make sure the software creates the functionality that's needed and going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Freed.
Joe, how you doing?
Good.
Good. I don't know, when I see you and talk to you, I always remember visiting you in the depths of the dungeons of the city hall. So I always like picturing you where you are today.
We have sunlight now.
The
Yeah,
sun
it's
that comes
beautiful,
in from
yeah.
this beautiful place. You mentioned a couple of things. The 27% increase, I believe, for the Microsoft product. Is that right?
It's close to 20%, 17%, or I'm sorry, 22% for Microsoft, I believe. Overall, if you added them all up, it's the equivalent of 20% of all
And,
the
yeah, I
applications.
thought it was 17 for the other one, but regardless, a 20% increase, that's just the cost of the software, or is that some service that they are offering?
So we do, to stay up to date, Microsoft did real close to us, so they kind of frown upon if we were to run 2007 or Windows 95. We have
Yes.
to keep paying our licensing. But we're also gaining feature sets. A large increase was when we moved from GroupWise to online Microsoft for email. So that did create an increase. There was an efficiency on the Novell side, but it was more expensive. But what we did is we put it in the cloud. So we're not paying for power and AC and battery backup over at the police station. So again, some of invisible things that you don't see savings on.
So that 20% increase is for the updated software, basically year after year, those
That's
cost
correct.
increases. Okay, that's interesting. You mentioned GroupWise. I'm so happy to see that gone. I don't understand how the word wise was in there. We're so much better off with what we have with Microsoft right now, at least for how my mind thinks. So with the staff, obviously you've heard my comments, got your response. My concern is obviously the perception of moving from 7 to 14, and then I hear from other folks in the city saying, well, geez, we really need staff as well, so there's a battle, right? And nobody's arguing that you don't offer a very essential service, but I think we are potentially missing 2 firefighters, at least within our department. How difficult would it be for you to operate at 12 FTE rather than 14?
Well, we're already behind the curve because on supporting the existing fleet, half of the FTE for the technician is just to catch up to where we are today. I gave you some of those numbers of 23%, 33% increase in the fleet itself. And then the other number I used was the increase in the service calls alone. So that's just to play catch up. To turn the other services on, where some efficiencies are created out in the field or in a different department, usually IS is the one that bears the burden of that. So in the private industry, there's a return on investment. In the public, the service we're providing is to provide better service to the citizens. It's very challenging to say what is the return on investment there. It's the expectations. So if we do put 7, 12 tablets out in the field for the inspectors, IS assumes that work. So there's an efficiency created. They're creating more, turning around more permits and being able to look at the plan sets. IS is going to pick up that challenge of supporting that equipment. So.
Yeah, you absolutely do, and I've seen that before. I believe in 11 years I've always supported whatever you brought forward from my recollection, because I believe great efficiencies are bought that often can't even be quantified. We don't even know really the benefit, but there is no doubt there is, because you help people work better, your department, right? So I appreciate the thought. You had some very empowered, not speech, but comments, I guess, what you said at the beginning. So I appreciate the thought that you put into that.
Thank you.
He doesn't want to say anything, so I'm just going to real quick go over a couple things. And I think you just touched on this, but I just want to reiterate it, that new technology does not create efficiencies in IS. What it does is create efficiencies in our other services. So if there's a at least tell me if I'm not right on that, but I would assume that if you bring on new software and have to train people to keep updated on everything else, that's a burden upon the IS division, but it's not. It should help and make our customer service levels better across the different departments that you support.
Absolutely. Years ago, they said email was going to save us a ton of time. Now, it's created more work, so there's a challenge there to say an efficiency is created. I think a better way of communicating and getting work done was created, but at the same time, the IS division is then responsible for supporting the software, backing up the software, loading the clients that make sure. So yes, there's many things that happen behind the scene to create that possible efficiency or delivery of better service.
And you mentioned Lucity, and I think that's a good, more modern example of when email came on, people thought, oh, this will really save us time. Did you have any staff increases when you brought Lucity on?
Yes, so we brought on as part of, we started this in utilities, so those 2 positions reside in utilities. We brought on an application analyst and a full-time GIS specialist because it is very GIS intensive.
Right. And just so everybody understands, what does Lucity do for the city?
So Lucity is what we would call an electronic maintenance management system. Everything above the ground and below the ground that is tracked by the city and we're responsible to provide services for, repair, and track is now held electronically. Before, Nick would have to pull a box out with some faxed work orders and try to track of the staff time. That's now all going to be captured electronically. And that's that phasing I was talking about. We're just going to keep adding more services to that. So collect all the data of the things we already own, put condition value on them, create preventive maintenance, a customer forward portal for our citizens to place work orders for anywhere, starting with water and sewer, but down the road for potholes and requests.
So I'm honing in on that because Lucidity is something that I'm familiar with, and when it comes on, it's frustrating because you have to do all this data processing, right? You got a maintenance technician now that's used to just going out and repairing things when they break. Now they actually have to track what they did and put in the information. But the back end of that is the life cycle cost of your assets.
Right.
And so you try to target where you're not replacing things too early and you don't wait till things collapse to try to fix them, because either side of that is extremely expensive, and there's a sweet spot to running municipal infrastructure. And so just to try to give an example, I guess, other than like email was in the past, Lucidity, when it comes on, yeah, it's a ton of work. There's a lot of effort to put all that data together. But in the end, if you manage your assets appropriately, you're going to save millions. I mean, our capital budget is how much, you don't need to answer that, but I mean, it's, millions and millions per year.
Well, a great example of that would be specifically if you thought about where we are with streets. If we had started this project 5 years ago, you would actually be able to create a box on a map and move that box around, and it would tell you where your money was going to be well spent or spent wisest. So it would tell you the condition and when the last time it was replaced. So, and there is a lot of heavy lifting up front, and that's why those application analysts are there for the long haul, because you have to get there. So if we did this 5 years ago, we'd be in a place like that. So I hope we'll be there in 5 years from now. So.
Did you want to chime in on that?
If I could, Joe has done an excellent job, and as have you, Mayor. I just wanted to add that asset management is also an excellent risk management tool. It can really help us demonstrate where we are and what we've been doing, so when we do have claims, that we have more information to help protect the city's liability.
Well, just like processing the evidence. I mean, if you don't unwrap the thing properly at the 8th time, you could botch the case. So I'm in full support of updating our technology. I think it's the customer service that the community demands and expects of us. I just kind of am sitting here just surprised, I guess. You might not have the answer to this, but how did we get here? I mean, how did we get to a place where it's not just one technology that needs to be replaced, but I mean, basically across the board, it sounds like we have things that are basically on life support or soon to be completely shut off from support. Do you have a politically correct answer to that?
I'd probably direct that to Bob, but I think he talked about it in the ALR. So, in the years of the recession, we put our money where we try, to not create a higher impact and spread it around so people can get work done and keep people on board. And those are times you still have to make investments in technology. Cell phones are good for 3 years, or not even. I don't think there's many people that are walking around with 3-year-old cell phones. But if you were in a tough time, you would probably try to make that 3-year-old cell phone work a little longer. So.
Yeah. So I appreciate you bringing this forward. I think it's a big lift, but like I said before, the bill has obviously come due, and I appreciate that you didn't go. At least what I'm hearing, you're not asking for things that you don't need. I mean, these are all essential software packages and support for those packages that just really need to be done so that we have the customer service. And I think we've heard from this council that we really want to put an emphasis on customer service. And when we had that leadership meeting with us and the executive leadership team, it was abundantly, it was just like the loudest thing in the room and the most obvious thing in the room that we needed to fix was our lack of current technology. So thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. City Manager, you wanted to wrap it up?
Well, at least for tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the, the thing I would leave for you to think about, because our next meeting to discuss this will be on November 8th, although you were going to talk about maybe we might want to move that meeting, or do you want to talk about that now?
Yeah, we could with the council. So I've had, I think, at least 3 people individually say, hey, can we maybe move that meeting or shorten that meeting? And so I just wanted to poll the council. If you wanted to move, I think it would make more sense to move it to Wednesday if we wanted to do it on November 9th instead of November 8th. But shortening the meeting is probably not a possibility because it's about a 4-hour agenda as it stands, and shortening it would just push things down the road that we don't need to move, or we can't move.
Which meeting?
November 8th, people would like to move it to, we could do it the Monday, but I think November 9th would be a little bit better because it'd be after the election. And so that we would know the outcome of, well, hopefully we'll know the outcome of the Safe Streets and Sidewalks levy. Oh, it's going to interfere with the Deputy Mayor's book club, but you'll move it. What about you, Councilmember Freed?
I can't, no.
On Monday or Wednesday?
I cannot do that on Wednesday. Monday would be perfectly fine.
Okay. Either?
I'm good with Monday.
You're good with Monday?
I can do either.
You can do either. Oh, okay. Well, I can do either as well, so it comes down to the book club. So do you want to move the book club or, oh, no, I'm sorry, it doesn't come down to it.
Sounds like
So it
Monday.
sounds like Monday.
Monday?
Like
Monday work for everybody that needs to be here on the agenda, hopefully. We'll follow up with you tomorrow.
Does it impact us at all that we won't know the results of the levy?
Nothing on the agenda is impacted by it.
No, we weren't assuming we'd know that night anyway. So, no, it doesn't. The real, where the rubber's going to hit the road, excuse me, is November 15th. That's where we put all this ball back in your court. And I think just to very quickly summarize what you've learned tonight, I mean, the budget does what I said it does. It is balanced through 17-18. It does deal with the staff to workload balance and rebalance redeployment issues, not all of which are popular, but are actually data linked. It does deal with the council goals. It maintains the basic line service strength in police, fire, parks and rec, development services, streets, assuming the levy passes. It deals with those employees that deal directly with the city citizens. The areas that are being compressed are in the support and non-direct line services. So the budget does a lot of things. What it does not do, it does not deal with the long-term needs that you've heard about tonight in police, the long-term needs that you're going to have to deal with in fire. It does not deal with the long-term issues of the aspirations of this community. I've been here long enough to hear about it. The need for parks in the North End, the need for open space preservation. This budget does not deal with those. The most immediate issue, which I think we need to talk about, not tonight, but I'll put together a policy paper for you on it, is this option to improve services to the south end of Bothell through a contract with the city of Kirkland. That is literally a multi-million-dollar decision. And that in and of itself is probably going to be the single biggest driver to all those other questions. What I'm suggesting is we don't have the information to answer those questions. If I did, I would have put a proposal in the budget. But you're going to have to seriously, with the help of the new city manager, you're going to have to look at those issues hard in 2017. My advice would be do not panic and make quick decisions based on emotional sort of appeals. You've heard a lot of those. Make sure you wait until you have the information you need to make the right decision. And I think that's what 2017 is about. And then I think you can start to make adjustments in whether it's police, whether it's fire, whether it's parks, any of those other issues beyond the baseline in the budget that we put together. that's when you would start to make those adjustments in 18, 19, and 20. So I really, really urge you to take a look at that strategic calendar, the copy of which was that last page, and think about how you address those issues. So I think that's my summary for this evening. I wanted to make sure you understood what's in the budget and what's not. I think you've got a good feel for that. And all I can say is it wasn't easy putting the budget together. It's not going to be any easier for you to balance it, but that is what you're elected to do. So my job is to give you a balanced proposal. Your job is to tear it apart and put it back together. So we'll see where we are on November 15th. So.
All right. Is there anything else for the good of the order? See none. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilmember McNeil. Oh, we're going to hit the vote. Are we doing the buttons? Vote. I'll bet we're adjourned. Passes unanimously. Councilmember Spivey, absent, excused. We're adjourned.